internet, and today's video is going to be another book opinion. Yes, I know, this is the third video in a row where I have worn the same exact outfit. However, how do you know I am not a cartoon character who simply wears the same thing every episode? So today's book opinion is going to be on Ruin and Rising, the last book in the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. There is not a lot I can say about this book. Now, if you're at all familiar or have been on BookTube often, have seen any videos surrounding this series, you know there is some debate, let's put it that way, some debate around this series because of the last book, and it's what made me so nervous to go into it, because everyone seems so tight-lipped when it came to this particular book and this particular series, like you were running around bushes trying to figure out a way to poke at stuff but never actually rouse the beast inside the bush. So I don't want to ruin anything because having read this, I can totally understand that sentiment. There are a lot of things in here that are considered major spoilers that even to speak about them kind of ruins the experience. However, I do want to talk about the ending. And you're like, but you just said you don't want to talk about spoilers. But I do want to talk about this ending to this trilogy because that's where most of this controversy lies. And it's because so many people are dissatisfied or betrayed by the ending of this book. And I want to tell you that if you are scared of going into this series because of this preconception held by so many others, I'm going to tell you there's nothing to worry about. Because to be honest, the ending of this book is not a shock. It is not that big of a surprise if you are a suspicious and careful reader. If you overanalyze everything, if you're suspicious of every detail that comes out, if you're constantly processing things when you are reading, this will not be a shock to you because Bardugo hints at everything. She kind of shows you throughout all of the books leading up to this point what's going to happen. She gives you all of the clues, the information. It's not just some random plot twist that's meant to shock you. It's all there. It's all given within the text. And if you take the time to see those things, you will come to the end. And maybe I was more sensitive to my suspicion because I was under the influence of so many who felt betrayed. But I think if you go into this series being suspicious, being like, ooh, I wonder why she put that there. Ooh, that kind of seems a little weird. I wonder where that could lead. Then the end of this book won't seem a shock. And I personally love the ending of this book. And I like it because of how heartbreaking it was in some senses, and because of that betrayal factor. And I'm struggling. I don't want to spoil anything, so let's put it this way. The end of this book was fitting for this story. If you're really paying attention to the story, these characters, you're not expecting them to ride off in the sunset. You're not expecting the princess to get the prince, that everything's going to be charming, that evil's just simply defeated and that's the end of it. Nothing is straightforward in this trilogy as a whole. Everything lies on this gray spectrum, like I've mentioned before in my previous videos. There is so much to be discussed and talked about over that idea, and you can see that as it leaks into the end and how the end is. So if you were going in and you were like, no, I just really wanted this really nice ending that was going to satisfy me, that's not the ending you get here, and it's not the ending you should be seeking when you read this series. Because when you follow the series, it's about a war-torn culture, a society who has been fighting amongst themselves as well as others. So you shouldn't expect a happy-go-lucky ending for this. And I actually preferred this. I think Bardugo led up to it. She did point it out. She did promise you the kind of ending that she gives you. And it really isn't a betrayal. Maybe you may feel betrayed, but it's not a betrayal to the story. It fulfills the story the way it should be, and it is a perfect ending for this story. And that goes back to something that I talked about in my Siege and Storm video, where sometimes it's important to disconnect yourself from the personal feelings that you might want something to go and the way that it should go. And this book, whether or not you have personal feelings for how you think endings should happen, I think it's important to understand that the way this ending happened is perfect for this book. Now, there is one specific thing that I did get annoyed about, but that was a pet peeve of mine versus anything wrong with the writer. And when Bardugo did it, I was just like, I knew that was going to happen. Like, I sensed that that was going to happen. And you did it. And I commend you for that. But I also kind of hate you a little bit because you just had to go that far. And at the same time, I praise her because sometimes you have to make the tough choices. I mean, sure, a book is the make-believe world of the author, but that doesn't mean it isn't in some sense real to both the author and the reader, and to make those tough choices is very important. So I'm going to tell you what that pet peeve is, simply because I don't like when people like, oh yes, I think this one thing, but I'm not going to tell you. So I'm going to hold up this book and I'm going to spoil this part, so do not continue on if you do not want to be spoiled. I cannot warn you enough, alright? Mute me, skip ahead to the end, I don't care. Do not listen to this unless you want to be spoiled. 1, 2, 3. So in the last bit of the story, the rest of the story, all the stuff that goes down, Alina loses her powers. And that hurt me. That hurt me so much. Like, I saw it coming when they showed you what happens in the beginning of the book. I knew it was gonna happen. Like, I'm like, oh, I should have expected this. I knew you'd do something like this to me. You just had to break my heart, Bardugo. You just had to do it. And the reason why this is such a personal pet peeve for me is because I've lived my whole life wanting that so bad. It's the reason why I'm a Slytherin. It's the reason why my favorite character is Tom Riddle. Because that idea of having a magic, of having a small science, of having some extra power that's just outside of human understanding to some point, always intrigued me. I always wanted to be that. I wanted to be the chosen one. I wanted to have that special power. Like, I just wanted to have something, okay? I don't care if it was to levitate 3 feet off the ground, or maybe I can spit farther than anyone else. I wanted a superpower. I always have. And so whenever I see a character who has some ability of some sort, and then it's ripped away from them, whether or not they want it to happen, whether or not it's supposed to happen in the story, for whatever reason it happens, I hate it. I feel so hurt because I just can't help think, what if that happened to me? Like, what if I found out I had this amazing ability and then it was all ripped away? I don't know how I could live through that, especially since it's been, like, my biggest dream in the friggin' world. I cannot tell you how much I've wanted this. So to have that happen just hurt me deep down inside. It was just painful. So that is the piece of the ending that I really, really got annoyed at. But at the same time, while it hurt so bad for that to happen because of how I personally feel about that topic, I understood it, and I thought it was a magnificent thing to do because it fit into the storyline, and it also fit into the friggin' title, and it encapsulated so much of what this whole series was showing you with this story, and it ended on a note where you're just like, this is what you were leading to, that even though that is something I absolutely despise when it happens, that it pains me so bad, I couldn't help but cheer on Bardugo in the fact that she did it. And I think that's what categorizes her as one of the best authors I've read, is because she makes so many choices that I personally do not agree with. Like, I don't agree with some of her let me put this book down. So I don't agree. But hey, to everyone who is back for my spoilers. So where I am is I don't necessarily agree with all of the choices Bardugo makes in all of her books and all of the choices in her characters and her endings and her plot points. I don't necessarily agree with all of them, not because they're bad or they're misplaced or they're lackluster or written badly, but simply because I hurt a little bit when I read it. I'm just like, ooh, yes, I know where this is going. It's like when you watch a sad movie that you know that's it's going to be sad. That's kind of how I feel when I read Bardugo. I know that something really sad that's going to pain me, and it's just going to make me, oh, the feels right here. And I love that. I love that despite all of this, despite me not usually wanting something that so readily disagrees with the things that I hold tender to my heart, I still could enjoy it to the extent that I did. And I guess that's the one thing I love the most about this series. I did see a lot of, like, again, that is such a huge thing to combat against, the personal feelings that the reader has versus the actual context of the book, and seeing whether or not the book is good and being objective in that. And I liked how I could be objective in the sense that even though I didn't agree with all those things, I could still see it as a great piece of literature and as something that I would be willing to reread in the future and that I would be willing to share with everyone else and recommend to other people. So for that reason, I say Bardugo gets a star in my book, and I am really happy that I spent the time on this trilogy. I'm really happy with how it ended. I'm proud to have it on my shelf, and I want to see more from her. Now, I don't know if I could survive if every other character was Alina, but I'm gonna give you a shot, Bardugo. Do not disappoint me. And that is it for my book opinion on Ruin and Rising. So, if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click the subscribe button and ring the little bell to be notified every time I put out a new video. Comment down below if you thought that I went too far and you were like, this chick still talks too much and she's about spoiled me on everything. Or if you're like, yeah, fair points. You're right. You're a genius, Chinoa. You know, I always like those compliments. And check out the social media links that I have in the description box. That is it. So, goodbye, Internet. Remember, be super suspicious about everything. You don't know what the real ending is.